and cutting out those monthly expenses really added up. But what it also did, as I mentioned earlier, was that then it gave me my number. I just don't feel like you can start a business without knowing what you need to make. And
this is the How to Quit Working Show. Jeff Steinman believes entrepreneurship is the only true path to freedom. That's why he created the How to Quit Working Show, where you'll hear stories, insights, and inspiration from lifestyle fanatics who left their soul-sucking 9-to-5 job forever. Now, here's your host, author, entrepreneur, and ultimate lifestyle fanatic, Jeff Steinman.
Hello and welcome to the How to Quit Working Show. Today we're going to talk to JL Fields of JL Goes Vegan. She, at the age of 45, decided to go vegan and created a blog about it, and that blog turned into a full-time business that supports her. She's going to tell us about how she did that, and I'm going to give you a warning or a heads up, whatever you want to call it. It's not the typical make money with a blog kind of a concept that you would think of. So when we say make money with a blog, we're talking about something a little bit different than like advertising or things like that I think we tend to jump to in our head when we think about making money with a blog or a website. So really good insights. She's going to tell you how it really works, not how, a lot of gurus or the common misconception would be about how it works. Before we jump into that, I want to thank everyone because today, it was actually at midnight today, or midnight last night, whatever it is, when it became today, How to Quit Working became #1 in one of the career categories on Amazon, and I just want to thank everyone who has either bought a copy of the book as a part of this last push to get over the top and get to that #1 spot, or anybody who's bought a book ever, because you've all been a great part of creating that book and creating the amazing community here that we have at How to Quit Working, and I just wanted to thank you for that. Means a lot to me to finally have that position and to be able to say that How to Quit Working is now an Amazon #1 bestseller. It actually feels really good and really fun to say that. So, business is about it's about making money, but it's also about accomplishments, and it's about reaching those milestones and those things that just make you feel really good and make you feel like you've gotten something done. And that's what that was for me. So thanks for being a part of that in any way. Even if you just listen to the show and you've never bought the book, you're still part of the How to Quit Working community and what makes this whole thing work, because it would be really boring and silly if I just was talking to nobody and nobody was listening. So thank you very much. Thanks for being a part of this amazing community. Now let's talk to JL Fields about how she created this amazing blog around her vegan lifestyle. JL, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
So glad to have you here. You are a really interesting person. Now, you went vegan late in life, and then you decided that you were going to help other people do that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, all completely unexpected. In my late 30s, I was working in the nonprofit sector. I had been since my early 20s. My master's degree is actually in college student personnel administration. So I shifted from working at a university level to working in the nonprofit sector, and had served as CEO of several nonprofit organizations. And in my late 30s, I was in Africa for one of the nonprofits that I ran, and we were there for an opening of a safe house for young girls. And one of the elders in the community brought a goat into the celebration, and that goat was subsequently slaughtered and stewed, and we had that goat for dinner that night. Mm-hmm. And that was the last time I ate meat. So I grew up in the rural Midwest, Iowa, Illinois, where meat is a big part of our lives. And so I had never had any intention of changing that, but it happened in that moment. And what really happened also in that moment, it turns out, was kind of catapulting a whole different trajectory in my life and in my career. I mean, I was about 38 at the time. And then between 38 and 45, I became a triathlete and a marathoner, quit smoking, ultimately went vegan. And at the age of 45, I quit working in a full-time position as director of a fundraising department at a college and started my own business.
Tell us a little bit about that business you started.
Well, what happened was when I went vegetarian, well, really it was when I went vegan, I started blogging about it. And the only reason I started blogging, because there are tons of wonderful vegan blogs out there, but I felt like my sort of gray-haired experience was a little bit different. I was 45 and I wasn't kind of the 20 or 30 something blogger taking beautiful food photography. I was trying to figure out my way in the kitchen, and I really didn't know too much what I was doing. When I had been working for the International Foundation, my husband really kind of took over the cooking, and so I didn't know what I was doing in the kitchen. I felt like there might be other women just like me, or men who were older and maybe thought that they couldn't drastically change their diet or lifestyle. So I just started writing about it for fun, and in the meantime, I kept going to my day job where I was a fundraiser at a college, and then I just really got into it. I started going to blogging conferences. I went to the very first vegan blogging conference and met really wonderful people. And then something really crazy happened. I met a woman that I admired. I knew her through her writing. She co-authored the book Vegan for Life. Her name is Virginia Messina. And she has a blog called theveganrd.com. which I really turned to because I needed help on making sure, am I getting my iron? Am I getting my calcium? Am I doing this right? And 3 months after I met her, she sent me an email and it simply said in the subject line, "Write a book with me?" ? And that was when I realized I was at a moment where I could drastically change where I was going, and I agreed to write a book with her, which came out last summer called Vegan for Her, The Woman's Guide to Being Healthy and Fit on a Plant-Based Diet. And it was at that moment when I started working on that book while doing my full-time job, I thought, you know what, there might be a way to become a student of my hobbies and turn this into a way that I can take my passion for veganism and health and empowering people to make changes at any time in their life. Maybe I could do this for a living.
Wow, that's cool. I heard you say something that was really interesting, and you said there was tons of great vegan blogs out there, but you felt like you had something different, and you said it was kind of your older, gray-haired experience, as you put it. What gave you kind of the level of confidence to believe that was truly unique and different enough to work?
That's a great question, because so many people come to me now and say, I want to start a blog. And I always say, why? And what are you going to write that no one else is writing?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm writing what no one else is writing, but I am saying I think I bring a different perspective. And I'll give you an example of that in a minute, but I'll go back to your question, which I think is a great one, which is why. And you know what? I didn't know. I actually didn't know if anybody would read my blog. And I think that is why it ended up taking off like it did. And I want to be very clear. I don't have a huge blog. Like, there are bloggers out there who have just thousands and thousands of page views a day, millions a year. I don't have that kind of blog. What I have is a consistent blog that I write consistently. I have a loyal group of followers. And what I really have are people who then ultimately engaged with me on social media. So, Facebook, my page for my blog, I have like 6,400 followers. It's not that big of a deal. I have 13,000 followers, almost 14,000 on Twitter. And so what I was saying obviously was resonating with people, but really what I thought was, I'm going to write what I feel like has been a unique experience for me of being post 40, learning how to find my way in the kitchen, not really feeling like I have a peer group. And I'm just going to write about that and see if anybody's interested. And I just consistently wrote, and I had no following, some following, and now, like I said, I don't have a huge following, but a super consistent one.
Very, very cool. So tell us a little bit about what's the monetization aspect of your business, because obviously you got bills to pay like the rest of us.
Exactly. And that's also a great question. And so, I wouldn't say that I make money from blogging per se, but I would say that most of the things that I do now in my business are certainly supported by my blog, and or clients have found me. So I should probably try to explain my business a little bit.
Let's hear about it. We love business. We love talking about this. That's
it's such a weird that, when people say, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know. What's today? Because that's going to be the answer. Whatever today is what I do. But so my business is called JL Fields Consulting. And within that, I have a very specific niche, which is Go Vegan with JL. And I incorporated that into my blog. So my blog is called JL Goes Vegan. So as you can probably tell, I was trying to be clever. So once I,
but it's clever in a way, but it's also extremely simple. Right. Exactly. When I saw your email, it says JL Fields of JL Goes Vegan. There's no question about what that is.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was just my blog. And so then, I went through training to become a vegan lifestyle coach. And so I'm like, okay, so how will people know what it is that I do? So I just looked at my blog name, JL Goes Vegan. Well, go vegan with JL. And that way, even if people kind of screw it up in their head, they're going to find me one way or the other. And so I bought that domain, go vegan with JL, and feed it into my main website, jlgoesvegan.com. And that's where I have a tab for services where I can help people with meal plans, individual coaching. I teach classes. I do cooking classes. Last night, I just did a demo at Whole Foods. And please don't forget the irony in this. 10 years ago, I wasn't cooking. And now I'm at Whole Foods teaching people how to make really simple plant-based meals. So that's one piece of what I do. But when I started this business, trust me when I say I wasn't making any money doing that. So I had to be really smart about this. When I made the decision to think about starting my own business, I am pragmatic. I'm like, okay, I live in New York. It's just my husband and I, no children, but we both worked and we both brought in equal amount of income into our home. And so the question became, what do we need to do to change our lifestyle so that I can figure out a new number that I need to strive toward? And that's my number. And if I'm going to start a business, I got to get that number. And so I say that only to say that I knew I couldn't dive right into the vegan and the health and the nutrition piece and the writing, which is what was really exciting. I'd been writing grants and I'd been writing fundraising letters for 25 years. That's not what I wanted to keep writing. I wanted to write from my heart. I wanted to write about health and nutrition. And that wasn't going to happen overnight. My book deal obviously was going to help with that, but there was going to take some time to get there. So what I did was I'm like, okay, so I've been in the nonprofit sector for 25 years. I have a couple of areas of expertise within that. I need to find one anchor client that I could consult with using that side of my skills and experience in my brain to bring money in, but not do it full time. I had to commit to only taking on a client where I spent 50% of my time doing that so that the other 50% would be spent like it was a job. And that job was to develop the business I wanted to be running. And that business that I wanted to be running was to be coaching people, to be counseling people. I do career coaching now, to be writing, to write my blog and not feel like it was something I did, at 10 o'clock at night or 6 a.m., but to take time in the middle of my day to take pretty pictures and write recipes, to go to conferences, to become a student of my hobbies so I could turn them into professions. And so I made that my job. And that was 2 years ago. And I'm happy to say that today I have no clients from that higher ed sort of traditional nonprofit sector. All of my clients now, as far as from corporate side of things, are based around food and nutrition. And then I have my client base, individuals that I work with, and I write. I write a vegan dining review for my local paper in Colorado Springs now, the Gazette. Believe it or not, once a month I write a review about being a vegan at restaurants. And I'm getting paid. And I just finished my second book, Vegan Pressure Cooking, that comes out in January. And so the point is I had a plan, and I knew that I had to be patient and I needed to be practical. And so that meant I didn't throw myself 100% in where I wanted to be. I threw myself 50% into where I wanted to be. And I kept my foot in that other world so that I could achieve my business goals. And my numbers changed. And then I'll tell you the other reason my numbers changed. We knew that to make this sustainable and for my husband to also be entrepreneurial, he's decided to leave his IT career to become a triathlon coach. We packed up and moved to Colorado.
You should have had him on the show too.
I know, right? Well, I'll set you guys up. But you know what? We crunched our numbers and we're like, you know what? If we got out of New York, we could make this happen. And we moved to Colorado Springs. Our income or our household expenses were reduced by 55%. And that means that we get to be very entrepreneurial. We get to be nimble and we live a lifestyle that we, lived before. It's just with mountains now.
Very cool. Well, so I think it's so interesting that folks on the show always talk about how they, before really getting the business off the ground, they had to kind of get their lifestyle in check and they had to get their lifestyle situated, so to speak, for entrepreneurship. And it sounds like for you, that was going from one of the highest living expenses or one of the places that's most expensive to live to a much less expensive place to live. any other kind of lifestyle adjustments that you made in preparation for starting your business?
Well, that's a great question. And it's so funny because, I didn't really know to do that. And so I love you saying that because it makes sense. And I think a lot of people don't take that time to think about, it's very, starry-eyed and dreamy to think about working for yourself. But when you really do it, you realize that you spend more of your life hustling than anything else. Or I have a friend recently, we were talking about this and she was starting her business and she said, I hate the self-promotion part and the marketing part. And I said, well, I got bad news for you. I said, in the first 1 to 2 years of your business, trust me when I say you'll be spending 80% of your time hustling and 20% of what you love doing. But you have to hustle so that down the road, it's going to become 40-60, 50-50, 60-40, and so, so I think that touchstone of reality is important for people, but so is your lifestyle. And so actually the picking up and moving isn't what happened first. What really happened first was, so we were living in New York and I wanted to leave my job and my husband had, his very good job in IT, working in Manhattan. And so, but we knew that this was going to be, I would make less money. So what we did was we took out our budget and we took a look at it and we got very realistic. We're like, do we really need Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime for streaming a video? Do we really need 3 newspaper deliveries when it turns out we never read them and we just use them to kindle the fireplace? Do we really need the housekeeper? And I would say, yes, I felt like we really did. But the truth of the matter was, if I was working from home, I could actually pick up a vacuum cleaner. And those little steps and cutting out those monthly expenses really added up. But what it also did, as I mentioned earlier, was that then it gave me my number. I just don't feel like you can start a business without knowing what you need to make. And it's not just what you need to make as far as your income of what you're going to pay yourself to live your life, but that you're going to have business expenses too. And so that was the first step. And then what happened was I was doing my business and starting it and spending time, learning and working with clients and trying to build a base and writing. And I was kind of noticing my husband a little, sad as he was getting ready to leave for his train ride into Manhattan. And one day I said, do you resent that I'm doing this? And he's like, no, I don't resent it. I wish I could do it too. And I said, well, you could. And he of course, is a realist like me. And he said, not here, I couldn't. And I said, truthfully, this is what I know now with my business. I could live anywhere. And so where do you think you could thrive as a triathlon and swim coach? And so he started doing some research. And listen, I'm going to be the first to admit we had a luxury here, which is no kids. So I'm sure there are people listening who are like, sounds nice, lady. I got 3 kids in school and I can't uproot them. I'm not saying it's a prescription. I'm saying it's what worked for us.
Sure.
And so he started to do some research and talk to his mentors, and Colorado Springs was the sweet spot. And that's when everything changed. And that's when we packed up and moved and we re-looked at now what's our budget? What's it going to cost to live here, to buy a home? What do groceries cost? What do travel costs? Because that changed my business expenses. It's very easy to fly out of New York. It's a little different out of Colorado Springs. And you do have to think about all of those things. But when you really take the time to do that, you're on solid footing and you can make some really strong decisions with your business plan and with your personal life.
What a great bunch of advice you just gave us there. It's so important to remember, and I think this is what a lot of folks forget when they're thinking about starting a business, is you gotta put your life in place. And not only did you get your life situated, you and your husband worked together to figure out how can we find and come up with a situation that's going to work for both of us.
Yeah.
And that is so cool. JL, I've had people recently contact me who are working on blogs, actually, in kind of even a similar niche, and looking at that as potentially a way to quit their job. What would you tell somebody who is just they're starting to think, well, I want to quit working, I want to do my own thing, and I think blogging might be the way to go?
Well, what I would say is if you're one of the lucky people to survive off of your blog, then that's going to be wonderful. But what I would say is think about how your writing a blog could serve what you want to do. And what I mean by that is, I just wrote from my heart on my little old blog. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't necessarily pretty, but I just wrote about what I knew, or what I was interested in. And what came from that was my first book deal. What came from that was realizing people were coming to me to ask questions about going vegan. So I chose to go through an academy of 50-hour training to become a vegan lifestyle coach. I chose to go to some public culinary courses because I wanted to stop cutting tips of my fingers off in the kitchen. And so I became a student of my hobby so that I could start to have some kind of cred behind what I wanted to do. And then I simply wrote about it. And what I mean is I didn't, certainly I promote my services on my blog, but not constantly. What I write about is what I know. And so when I say, so I was teaching a class last night and someone said, I don't know what to do. My husband's not vegan. I want to eat vegan. So this is impossible. And I get to say, well, guess what? My husband wasn't vegan either. And this is how we made it work. Mm-hmm. And I write about those things on my blog. And then you know what? People contact me on my blog and they said, I found your blog. I read this piece. Can I have 3 sessions with you for lifestyle coaching? Or my second book deal, the publisher reached out to me and they said, we're really interested in putting a title out on pressure cooking. We see that you love it. Are you interested? And that's my second book. And Jeff, I tell you, when I finished the first book with Jenny, Vegan for Her, I said, I'll never do a book again. I'm not interested in the hustle. I'm not interested in putting a proposal together. I just want to do what I love doing. And I love my pressure cooker to the point of madness. And that clearly came through my voice and how I write on my website. Well, guess what? That landed me a book deal. And so all of this to go back to say, if you're starting a blog because you're going to think you're going to make money off of it, your readers are going to figure that out. And instead, if you want to write a blog about what you know or what you're passionate about or what you don't know, but you're super inquisitive about, and you tell the truth and you're transparent and you write from a voice of authenticity, that can support things. And I want to get back to, because now I'm realizing I didn't completely answer your question about the monetization. Listen, I have a blog, HER.com ad on my site. I make like maybe $40 a month from that. I have some affiliate links. I make some money off that, but
not significant money.
Not significant, but my book deals came from my website. I now work with Sunshine Burger, which makes vegan burgers. They hired me to do recipe development for them this summer and write on my blog. I have sponsored rates and recipe development rates. I shared those with them. They paid me for that. But more importantly, then I met the owner of the company. He liked me. And now I go out and I represent the company at festivals. And so that happened because of my blog. So that's my point. Like, I don't say that I don't make any money from my blog. I make a lot of money in my business as a result of writing an authentic blog.
What great advice. JL, thanks so much for sharing all of that great information. And where can we go to get more information about you and going vegan and anything else that you might want to tell us about?
Oh, well, thank you. So you can find me at jlgoesvegan.com. And that's also that I'm JL Goes Vegan on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest. But you can find out all about my vegan journey and how I help folks along the way at jlgoesvegan.com. And then on my main business site, which is jlfieldsconsulting.com, I actually do career coaching for health and wellness coaches. So people just like me and chefs, people who really are trying to make a break into the business world and really are unique and niched in wanting to do something that's plant-based, vegan, health-related, nutrition-related. And so you can check out my services there too.
Oh, excellent. So that might be helpful for someone who is looking to do something similar to what you're doing.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, JL, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your journey. Thanks for sharing all this great advice. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to see what amazing things you do next.
Oh, Jeff, thank you. And I'm a huge fan of yours. I think that you inspire people to think big, bold, different, and know that their life can change at any point. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much. See, now, I told you it's not all about, putting ads on the site and all of that kind of stuff on that smaller stuff that we tend to think is the way to make money off of a blog or a website. It's all about using that as a positioning tool. Everything that JL said about blogging also applies to writing books, right? When you write a book, if you rely on sales from that book to become a revenue source, just like JL mentioned about the advertising on her website, you're not going to make a lot of money very fast. In fact, I did some calculations the other day, and you have to sell like such an insane amount of books at the average price to even get to a $50,000 a year salary. So again, look at things like blogs, books, and that as positioning tools, things that things that help people to learn about you and understand who you are, what you're about, in order to get your name out there so that you can then monetize it with something else that, and we talk about this in the How to Quit Working Circle a lot on Facebook, but something that allows you to make a lot more money with a lot less effort and a lot fewer transactions. There's a whole episode of the How to Quit Working show where I talked about that. But again, don't look at those things as money makers in and of themselves. And if you want to keep talking about this stuff, head over to Facebook. Go to howtoquitworking.com/group, and that shoots you over to Facebook, where you will be able to just click on the little join group button, and then we'll approve your request right away. Until next time.
Thanks for joining us on the How to Quit Working show. Tune in next time when we'll talk to another amazing person just like you, who is now living the ultimate life of freedom and doing it on their terms. If you want to learn how to quit working and get these episodes delivered directly to you, visit howtoquitworkingshow.com.